Hey, folks, welcome back to the Dennis Miller Show. This segment of the show brought to you by AutoZone. For the auto parts, accessories, and advice you need, get in the zone. AutoZone. Joining us now, Fox News analyst, nationally syndicated columnist, one of my intellectual heroes, and his bestseller, Things That Matter, I believe has just gone past the 25-week mark on the New York Times bestseller list. Nice to see quality rewarded. Charles Krauthammer. Charles, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Real quick,
Pleasure.
before we get to Benghazi, I just wanted to ask you real quickly. I guess America comes down to two distinct tribes of people now. Those who the lead would be 6.3% unemployment today, and then there's a little less than half, I guess, according to election results, that believe the 800,000 more that dropped out of the workforce, and the workforce now being at 92.6 million people not working, would be the lead. Which camp are you in?
I'm in the camp of realism, truth, and justice, where you are, basically. We live in the same place.
Yeah, tough.
Of course, the lead story is the collapse. This is a collapse of the workforce participation rate. This is 800,000 Americans who are so discouraged about work, and the majority, by the way, are non-college educated, who have dropped out of the market. You know, Europe doesn't have this crazy statistic the way we have, so that if you drop out and you stop looking, you're no longer considered unemployed. I mean, this is kind of nuts. You're like super unemployed. You should be counted twice. Instead, you don't get counted at all, and that's what accounts for the drop in the unemployment rate. This is a disaster.
Yeah.
And look, you've got 288,000 new jobs. Fine. After a rough winter, I'd expect a rebound like that. But the real problem is that we have historic lows in the middle of what should be a recovery, year 5 of what is the worst recovery since the Second World War. We get 2% growth in the economy. At 2%, you can't get anywhere with unemployment. You don't increase the pie, and all you're left to do is what, of course, a social democrat like Obama would do, is redistribute the pie because they have no idea how to grow the damn thing.
Well, I'm just a little rocked, though, that, man, this is something that would be waded into by journalists by and large. But I guess Carney et al. Have condensed it down to a Fox story, which is so bizarre to me that the others don't jump on this. Let's go to another Fox story, one that I find more heartbreaking, because you've got 4 dead people. You know, they're turning Benghazi into a Halliburton thing where, you know, if you say Benghazi, you're now a nutter. They accuse us of throwing it around. But tell me what was discovered this week, Charles. Tell me the importance of it.
This is the smoking gun. And the reason it's so important, I compared it the other night to the Watergate tapes, because people have been saying, the White House had been insisting from the very beginning that Susan Rice misleading the nation, I mean, you can't get around it. Whether she was a dupe or whether she knew what she was saying doesn't matter. She speaks for the administration, and she says, you know, this was a video gone, and people got upset, a demonstration gone mad, and this has nothing to do with our policy in the Middle East. This is in the middle of an election campaign. So it is pointed out that these are lies from beginning to end. The White House line for a year and a half has been, oh, these all came from the CIA talking points. Well, we know from looking at the entire history of the CIA talking points that they were heavily changed under pressure from the White House and the State Department. That's old news. We know also that they made no mention of the video. So that doesn't explain what had been said by Susan Rice. So what happens this week, we get the first piece of direct evidence of White House intervention in the process, telling Susan Rice to lean on the video and not the policy failures of the administration. So the connection to the White House, which is what the charge had been, this is an administration that with 4 dead Americans lying there was telling a false story to the American people to explain how it happened, because they were weeks away from an election on which Obama was claiming al-Qaeda was on the run. So you get this memo. It says prep for Susan. This is White House guy, NSC, National Security Council guy, prepping. He's writing a memo saying, here's my prep for what I'm going to tell you for your Sunday appearance. And it says the goal of your appearance is to emphasize, to stress, to explain that this was the result, these protests were a result of demonstrations of a video and not policy failures. Now, Carney tries to get up there and say, oh, that wasn't about Benghazi.
Mm-hmm.
That was about a demonstration in Cairo, and they were all over the place. Is there a 9-year-old in the world who believes that? Even if you were to say that this guy, Rhodes, who wrote the memo from the White House, was talking about the general situation, clearly he was including Benghazi. He wasn't going to leave out the reason that Susan Rice was on TV in the first place. Hadn't been for what happened in Benghazi, she wouldn't have been on TV. So what he is saying is all of these things, including Benghazi, came out of a video and not from policy failures. And when the CIA guy, Morell, testified a few weeks ago, was asked, what did you think when you saw Susan Rice? He said, well, when she talked about the video, I said to myself, that sure didn't come from us. So now we know, came from the White House. The only explanation is that it was done to make the story congenial to a president claiming Al-Qaeda's on the run. It was covering up the failure, and now we see that this memo, which had been hidden from view for a year, it had to be extracted through a court proceeding to release it, was a cover-up of the cover-up. That's a big deal.
We're talking to Charles Krauthammer, nationally syndicated columnist, Fox News analyst, author of Things That Matter. The smoking gun, though, Charles, I believe is pointed directly by the Republicans at their own foot, unfortunately. I don't think they've built the case. Your thoughts?
I'm very discouraged by how Republicans have handled this. A few weeks ago on Fox, I said, forget it. We've lost this battle. Sometimes you win them, sometimes you lose them. Sometimes stonewall obstruction and lying works. And the reason is that when you look at these hearings, when they get administration witnesses up there, they're disjointed, people are reading statements. Nobody follows up. What you had to have done from the beginning was a select committee, like you did with Watergate or Iran-Contra, where you put the questioning in the hands of a smart lawyer, a prosecutor, who proceeds from one piece of evidence to another the way you would in a court. That's how you explain a scandal as complicated, difficult, but important as this one. Instead, they just had hearings that let them get away with murder. I say that figuratively. And now that this memo has appeared, perhaps they'll be able to get their act together. And it does seem to me from watching the reaction of the mainstream media in the press room that they may finally be somewhat embarrassed by the fact that they let the administration totally off the hook for a year and a half and swallowed all these spin stories. This one that you can't spin. This is about Benghazi. This is the White House telling Susan Rice, let's talk about a fable here. So I think if the mainstream media stay on this, if they give it half the attention they gave the closing of the George Washington Bridge by Christie's minions, then we might get a story here. So I can't predict. I do think it's a tragedy, and I think it's a scandal the way it was covered up. But as we both know, sometimes you get away with it, and the Republicans have played a very strong hand very badly.
Yeah. No doubt, sometime today, Carney will say that the lack of reinforcements at the Benghazi consulate were due to bumper-to-bumper traffic on the George Washington Bridge.
Exactly, ordered by George W. Bush.
It's crazy, Charles.
Of climate change. I mean, these things are all related.
They've subpoenaed Kerry, I believe ISIS has. I think Kerry will be attending to an international fire with the alacrity one would have hoped we would have responded the night at Benghazi, but I'm pretty sure he'll be out of town in a DEFCON 1 situation, right?
Look, Kerry's not the important actor here. This is another one of these things. I'm not particularly interested in Kerry. Yes, he's important in the fact that this stuff was not released before, but it's Hillary Clinton and it's Barack Obama. Ironically, the two principals in the 3 a.m. phone call I had when she was running for president. Well, here's a case where the phone call came in, in the middle of the day, at the end of the day. It wasn't 3 a.m. It was 3 a.m. in Benghazi, but it was evening here in D.C. Where the hell was the president during the 8 hours? What orders did he give? We don't know a damn thing. We do know he spent an hour on the phone at 8 o'clock with Benjamin Netanyahu trying to repair the PR damage from the Jerusalem issue at the convention in 2012. This is in the middle of all this craziness going on. We're not even sure if our ambassador's alive or dead. Where was she? What was she doing? The military, apparently, according to a witness yesterday, a brigadier general who was the deputy for intelligence, is saying that they were waiting to be asked to do something by state, and state never asked. Well, she's in charge of state. And instead, at about 10:15 or so, on the night of this event, which went on from about 5 p.m. Eastern to about 3 a.m. Eastern, so around, in the middle of it, around 10 o'clock, the State Department releases a statement deploring the video and saying this is not how America acts. In the middle of this, they're working on what seems to me a cover story while the damn thing is going on. And while the two Americans who died in the second action toward the end of the 7 or 8 hours were still alive. That needs to be explained above everything else. Where was the president and where was the chief of the State Department?
Well, I'd like to say that I am certain about things that will come out of this, but the only thing I'm probably certain about is that under President Hillary Clinton, Susan Rice will be the next Secretary of State, I can only assume, right? I mean...
Yeah, are you trying to depress everybody? Do you want me to offer your viewers to write a prescription for antidepressants for anybody who needs it to get through the next...
Well, I'm just saying she's a made woman now. I mean, when you have yourself being duped on 5 screens... I mean, she looked like the Brady Bunch there at the opening credits. They had her on 5 screens being duped. And I remember thinking, why would she do this? She's made for the rest of her life, I think.
Why didn't Hillary go on the 5 screens? After all, it was Susan Rice, as everybody has admitted, had nothing to do with this. This was up the chain of command to Hillary Clinton. These were people, the ambassador was working under Hillary Clinton, and then Obama above her.
Well, I can only say, Charles,
Susan Rice.
Yeah, but I can only say that people are often querulous as to the meaning of the word vouchsafe. Hillary Clinton has been vouchsafed, so just put that together. This isn't going to touch her. I don't believe.
You don't think it's going to affect her? I think it does.
Yeah, well, I'm a little more. You said that you thought Benghazi was over. This might re-spike it, reanimate it. I still think it's over.
I'm not cynical enough anymore. I have a tiny bit of hope in human decency. Clearly, this is an error on my part.
Thank you, Charles. Nationally syndicated columnist, Fox News analyst, author, Things That Matter. When you send out a former employee to issue the official statement, dude, that was 2 years ago. The end is nigh.